notable. It was interesting in looking at, in reviewing a little bit of what the Brazilian government is saying about zero hunger, and there's a nice website that they have and so on. I was struck by this next part, really, on what they see as the main features that they are most proud of is actually this linking of food security, economic development, and social inclusion, and what that allowed. And the three things that they point to is this joint action by state and society in a new way, the way that it has overcome social and economic inequality, and this connection through the budget process between sort of short-term emergency activities and longer-term structural change and investment. Obviously, a federal government program, but with links to state and the next lower level down at the municipal level. When you look at the institutional aspects, this is also, I think, quite a critical issue when you look at it in global terms. It starts with a new law. It's not just a sort of a government program. There is a really comprehensive national food and nutrition security law, as other countries have. Not a lot of other countries have, but another number of other countries have, and the Brazil law is really quite comprehensive. Also, this National Council on Food Security didn't start with zero hunger. In fact, I think it comes from the time when Itamar Franco was president, which is a couple of presidents ago. So the idea of having a national council has been there for a while, but giving it actual teeth and power is a new one, new ministry created to start with on food security, but that was later then blended into the Ministry for Social Development and the fight against hunger. And also, interestingly, requirements, partly in the law, that different ministries, different departments have to account for their impact and their allocations for hunger, which I think is probably rare, if not unique. And then, of course, also lots and lots of social mobilization and involvement of community groups and a structure of how you get representation at the local and municipal level and so on. So when you look then at this sort of access plus long-term twin track approach, certainly the access to food is the part that has gone best, really, with this Bolsa Familia, which is a conditional cash transfer program, hugely successful, borrowing a lot on the pioneering work in Mexico and also in Brazil with let's say, conditional cash transfers for education, keeping kids in schools and the benefits for families and so on. A lot of other feeding programs, not only school feeding, but also purchasing from small farmers to put that into the food system and so on. A lot of other things. In addition to which, structural policies and long-term priorities on land reform, income and jobs, the kind of things actually that Joseph had in his remarks, and Alec McCullough also, on how you modernize the system. The results of all this have been really, really good. Poverty declined a lot from 2003 to 2008, particularly for those really poor and sort of the most vulnerable populations. Child malnutrition also declined just a huge amount, but that decline started much earlier. Brazilian economic growth, of course, has been really good. Employment creation has been really good, plus the sort of social safety net, Bolsa Familia and others. So the decline in child malnutrition for over the last 10 years is really, really remarkably good. The fast-acting parts, not surprisingly, have worked much better than the longer ones, especially land reform and other things that have been really, as you would expect, much more complicated. And I think a new aspect, and this is something that Graziano, if you were here, I'm sure would emphasize more, this sort of complementary program now to target even more directly communities and parts of the country that have not benefited even from the sort of structural reforms within zero hunger to the extent that they should have, called territories of citizenship. So just in conclusion, when you look at that first diagram I had of what sort of zero hunger says about national food and nutrition security plans, I think really obviously political will and financial resources were critical. But not only that, but this focus on hunger as sort of a central idea, and then how you would then adjust what ministries do, how they work together, how society works, how the federal and state governments work together, how you structure that in a way that affects a lot of what government does, I think is really a remarkable story. The second thing is really, I think, building really on what Alex said, this recognizing the complexity. This is, it's easy to kind of, talk about how complex the thing is, but you really, how you put these different pieces together is not so simple, and how you look at access, what you work on production, how you work on social exclusion, and how you get society involved in that, and pressure on local government to do so is really a complicated thing, and I think it was this comprehensive view that led to the success, and also the controversies, of course, the polemical nature of a lot of zero hunger. And then finally, I think this idea of that I find just fascinating, of how you move from sort of a Lula policy to a new way of permanent restructuring of the role of the state in prioritizing hunger and food and nutrition security in a way that is probably reversible, or probably irreversible. I mean, you never know if things are really irreversible, but certainly it's not really seen, I think, anymore as a policy of Lula. I mean, certainly he will always be associated with it, but it really has got roots, and how you get roots in something like this when we have crises and governments changing and so on is always a major problem, and I think that's a real significant factor in the Brazil story. Thank you very much.
Thank you.